Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because at 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you.
The bustling chaos of Ares 9, a sprawling galactic trading outpost, was enough to overwhelm most newcomers. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and temperaments filled the endless corridors, their voices blending into a cacophony of alien languages. But Captain Jason Grayson moved through the crowd with laser focus, his broad shoulders parting the sea of beings as he navigated toward his destination. His mission was clear, but his expression betrayed the simmering rage beneath his calm demeanor. He didn't belong here, not among the smugglers, traders, and outlaws who frequented the station. Jason was a soldier turned mercenary, a man who thrived in combat but carried the scars of too many battles. Yet, this time, he wasn't here for a contract. He was here for something personal. Rumors had reached him days ago, a raid on the human colony New Horizon. Supplies had been stolen, buildings razed. But the worst part? A group of children had been taken. Jason had grown up in colonies like New Horizon. He knew what it meant to be part of a struggling frontier community. For someone to attack them, and worse, to kidnap their children, was an act of pure evil. The whispers pointed to a name that made Jason's blood boil: the Tarvac Syndicate. They were infamous slavers, a brutal gang that dealt in stolen lives. Jason had faced the Tarvacs before during his military service. He knew their methods, their cruelty, and their disregard for any law but their own greed. Now, he was hunting them. Jason entered a dark, smoke-filled cantina tucked into one of the station's lower levels. It was the kind of place where deals were made, secrets were traded, and morality was left at the door. He scanned the room, his sharp eyes landing on a short reptilian alien seated at a corner table. The creature's scales shimmered under the dim lighting, and its large, nervous eyes darted around the room. "Grayson," the alien hissed, waving him over. "Quickly. Sit." Jason approached and slid into the seat across from him. "Tarsik," he greeted coldly. "You'd better not be wasting my time." The reptilian shifted uneasily. No, I've got what you need. Information on the kids." Jason leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Then talk." Tarsik swallowed hard, his forked tongue flicking nervously. "The Tarvacs have them. They were taken to one of their transports, the Crimson Claw. It's en route to the Valoran Maw." Jason's jaw tightened. He'd heard of the Valoran Maw. It was a notorious fortress floating above the event horizon of a black hole. It was said to be impenetrable, a haven for the galaxy's worst criminals. It was also the heart of the Tarvac Syndicate's operations. "How long until they get there?" Jason demanded. 3 days, Tarsik replied. "Maybe less if they push their engines." Jason clenched his fists under the table. "Coordinates." Tarsik hesitated, his eyes flicking nervously toward the bar. "Look, Grayson, you don't want to do this. The Maw's defenses are." "Coordinates," Jason growled, cutting him off. Tarsik sighed and slid a datapad across the table. "You're insane, human. No one gets into the Maw and lives to tell about it." Jason grabbed the datapad and stood, his towering frame casting a shadow over the smaller alien. "Good thing I don't plan on leaving anyone alive." He turned to leave, but Tarsik called after him. "Hey Grayson. If you survive, drinks are on me." Jason didn't bother responding. Back aboard his ship, the Resolute, Jason sat in the cockpit and reviewed the data. The route to the Valoran Maw was treacherous, requiring a passage through regions of unstable space and asteroid fields. The Maw itself was a floating nightmare of spikes, reinforced hulls, and heavy defenses. He'd be outnumbered, outgunned, and facing some of the deadliest scum in the galaxy. Jason smirked to himself. Just another Tuesday. He activated the comms. "Kara, you there?" A hologram flickered to life on the console. Kara Steele, his longtime ally and tech specialist, appeared with a raised eyebrow. "Jason, I heard you're about to do something monumentally stupid. What's the plan?" "They took kids, Kara," Jason said simply. "The Tarvacs are holding them on the Maw. I'm going in." Kara's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Jason, the Maw isn't just a pirate haven. It's a death trap. Even with your skills, you're not walking in there and coming out unscathed." "I don't need to walk out unscathed," Jason replied, his voice cold and steady. "I just need to get those kids out." Kara sighed, shaking her head. "You're impossible." "Fine. I'll patch into their security grid and see if I can feed you intel. But you're going to owe me. Big time. Jason smirked. Put it on my tab. The comm went dark, leaving Jason alone in the dimly lit cockpit. He stared out at the stars, his jaw tightening. The Tarvacs thought they could prey on humanity's weakest and get away with it. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jason set a course for the Valoran Maw, the engines of the Resolute roaring to life. As the ship disappeared into the vast expanse of hyperspace, one thing was certain: someone was going to pay for what had been done. The Resolute streaked through hyperspace, its engines humming steadily. Jason sat in the cockpit, staring at the swirling patterns of light outside the viewport, his mind focused on the task ahead. The children taken from New Horizon had less than 3 days before they were delivered to the Valoran Maw. He had to move fast. Jason leaned back in his chair, pulling up the schematics Kara had sent. The Valoran Maw was a fortress of nightmares. Perched precariously above the event horizon of a massive black hole, it was both a symbol of the Tarvac Syndicate's arrogance and a practical defense against any would-be attackers. The station's outer shell bristled with weapons, and its interior was a labyrinth of fortified corridors, holding cells, and auction rooms where lives were traded like commodities. A warning light blinked on the console, pulling Jason from his thoughts. He checked the sensors. A ship was trailing him, too far back to pose an immediate threat, but close enough to raise suspicion. He activated the comms. Kara, are you seeing this? Kara's hologram flickered to life. She wore her usual smirk, but her sharp eyes darted over the data. Yep, you've got a tail. Looks like a scout ship. Tarvacs, judging by the energy signature. Jason tightened his grip on the controls. They know I'm coming. Of course they do, Kara said. You're not exactly subtle, Jason. They probably heard about you asking questions at Ares 9. What's your play? Jason checked his weapon stash and the ship's limited defensive capabilities. I'll let them think they're gaining on me. When we drop out of hyperspace, I'll deal with them. Kara frowned. Be careful. If they report back, you'll have the whole syndicate on your tail before you even reach the Maw. Jason grinned, his expression feral. That's the idea. When the Resolute dropped out of hyperspace, the scout ship wasn't far behind. Jason quickly maneuvered into an asteroid field, using the massive rocks for cover. The scout ship followed, weaving through the debris with surprising agility. Jason armed the ship's plasma cannons, but he knew the Resolute wasn't built for sustained combat. He had to end this quickly. The scout ship opened fire, its plasma bolts narrowly missing the Resolute. Jason gritted his teeth, pushing the ship's engines to their limit. He ducked behind a large asteroid, waiting for the right moment. When the scout ship came around, Jason hit the thrusters, spinning the Resolute into a tight arc and firing a barrage of plasma bolts. The scout ship's shields absorbed the first few shots but failed under the onslaught. A direct hit to its engines sent it spiraling out of control, crashing into a nearby asteroid in a fiery explosion. Jason exhaled sharply, his heart pounding. Kara, it's done. No way they're reporting back. Good, Kara said, though her tone was tinged with concern. But now they'll know something's up when that scout doesn't check in. You need to move faster. Jason nodded, adjusting the Resolute's course. I'm on it. How's the intel on the Maw? Kara's fingers danced across a console on her end. I've got good news and bad news. Good news, I've managed to patch into their systems remotely. I can guide you once you're inside. Bad news, their defenses are worse than we thought. Automated turrets, patrols, and a central AI that tracks every movement in the station. Jason smirked. Sounds like a party. Jason, I'm serious, Kara said, her smirk replaced with a worried frown. If you get caught, I won't be able to get you out. Jason leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. I won't get caught. And even if I do, I'm not leaving without those kids. The Resolute approached the Valoran Maw, its massive spiked silhouette growing larger against the backdrop of the black hole. Jason maneuvered carefully, using the gravitational distortions to mask his approach. The Maw's defense system scanned the area, their beams of light cutting through the void, but Jason kept to the shadows. Kara's voice crackled in his earpiece. I found an access point, a maintenance port on the station's underside. It's not monitored, but it's a tight fit. Can your ship handle it? Jason chuckled. The Resolute has seen worse. With careful precision, Jason guided the ship to the maintenance port. The docking clamps engaged with a hiss, and the interior lights dimmed. He stood, grabbing his gear, a plasma rifle, thermal grenades, and a combat knife. His armor, patched and scarred from countless battles, felt heavier than usual. As he moved toward the airlock, Kara spoke again. "Once you're inside, head for the security hub. From there, I can disable the turrets and lock the guards out of the lower levels where they're keeping the kids." Jason paused at the airlock, his expression grim. "What happens if something goes wrong?" "Then you improvise," Kara said, her tone lighter. "You're good at that." Jason smiled faintly. "Thanks, Kara." The airlock hissed open, and Jason stepped into the maintenance corridor of the Valoran Maw. The air was stale, and the walls were lined with pipes that hummed faintly. He moved silently, his rifle at the ready. As he advanced deeper into the station, the weight of the mission pressed on him. He wasn't just fighting for revenge or a paycheck. He was fighting for the innocent, for the children who didn't deserve to be pawns in the galaxy's cruel games. The Tarvac Syndicate had made a grave mistake, and Jason Grayson was about to teach them why humanity was not to be underestimated. Jason moved through the narrow maintenance corridor of the Valoran Maw, his steps silent as his boots touched the grated floor. The air was stale, tinged with a metallic scent of recycled oxygen. The faint hum of machinery surrounded him, a constant reminder of the fortress's immense size and function. Kara's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Okay, you're in. The security hub is about 2 levels up from your position. Watch out for patrols." Jason smirked. "You don't have to tell me twice." He adjusted his rifle, checking its charge as he crept toward a hatch that led into the main structure of the Maw. Peering through a crack, he saw 2 Tarvac guards lumbering down a corridor. They were massive, covered in thick plated exoskeletons that gleamed under the dim lighting. Jason waited until they passed, then slipped through the hatch, his movements fluid and precise. The corridors of the Maw were a labyrinth of reinforced walls, narrow walkways, and heavy doors. Kara guided him through the maze, her voice steady and calm despite the stakes. "Take the left corridor. There's a ventilation shaft you can use to bypass the patrol." Jason found the shaft, removing the cover and sliding in. The metal was cold against his armor, and the tight space forced him to move slowly. Through the slats, he saw rooms filled with cages, alien prisoners huddled together. The sight fueled his anger, but he pushed it down. He couldn't afford to lose focus. As he neared the security hub, Kara's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Jason, I'm picking up movement near your position. They're running a security sweep." "Fantastic," Jason muttered. He slipped out of the vent and ducked into the shadows of a large support column. The patrol was close, their guttural voices echoing through the corridor. 2 Tarvac soldiers entered the room, their weapons drawn. Jason watched, waiting for the perfect moment. When one turned his back, Jason struck. He moved like a predator, taking down the first soldier with a silent slash of his combat knife. The second turned, raising his weapon, but Jason fired his rifle, the plasma bolt hitting its mark. "Room's clear," he whispered. "Good," Kara said. "The hub is just ahead. Be ready, the defenses will be tight." The security hub was a sprawling chamber filled with consoles, holographic displays, and heavily armed guards. Jason surveyed the room from a vent above, counting 5 guards patrolling the area and 2 more stationed at the main terminal. He adjusted his rifle, checking his ammo. This would have to be quick. "Kara, can you shut off their cameras?" he asked. "I can loop them for about 30 seconds. After that, you're on your own." 30 seconds is all I need." Jason waited for Kara's signal. When the camera feeds looped, he dropped from the vent, landing silently behind one of the guards. A swift strike to the back of the neck sent the alien crumpling to the ground. Jason moved like a ghost, taking down 2 more before they could react. The remaining guards turned, shouting in their guttural language. Jason dove for cover as plasma bolts lit up the room. He returned fire, his shots precise. The first guard fell, then the second. Only the 2 at the terminal remained. Jason rolled out of cover, tossing a thermal grenade. It landed between the guards, detonating in a flash of light and heat. When the smoke cleared, the room was silent. "Kara, I'm at the terminal," Jason said, sliding into the chair and plugging in a data chip. "Give me a second," Kara replied. Her fingers flew across her console, and the holographic displays around Jason lit up with streams of alien text. "Got it," she said. "Turrets are disabled, and I've locked the guards out of the lower levels. You're clear to get the kids. Jason stood, grabbing his rifle. Where are they? Level 3, Sector 7. They're in stasis pods. You'll need to override the locks manually. On my way, Jason said, already moving. The stasis chamber was eerily quiet, rows of glowing pods lined up like coffins. Jason approached the nearest one, his heart tightening as he saw the pale face of a child inside. They looked so small, so vulnerable. Kara, I'm at the pods, he said, his voice tight. Starting the override. The terminal beside the pods blinked with alien text. Jason worked quickly, following Kara's instructions. One by one, the pods hissed open, and the children stirred, their movements sluggish from stasis. It's okay, Jason said gently. You're safe now. I'm here to take you home. The children looked at him with wide, frightened eyes, but there was a flicker of hope in their expressions. Jason guided them out of the chamber, keeping his rifle ready as they moved through the station. Jason, you've got company, Kara warned. Reinforcements are on their way. Of course they are, Jason muttered. He turned to the children. Stay close to me. No matter what happens, don't stop running. The first wave of Tarvac soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor, their weapons blazing. Jason pushed the children into cover, then turned to face the attackers. Plasma bolts flew past him as he returned fire, his movements sharp and deliberate. He threw a grenade, the explosion taking out several enemies. More soldiers arrived, but Jason held his ground, his determination unwavering. He was outnumbered, but he fought with the fury of a man who had nothing left to lose. When the last soldier fell, Jason turned to the children. Move. Now. They ran toward the docking bay, Jason covering them every step of the way. When they reached the Resolute, Jason herded the kids inside and slammed the hatch shut. Kara, we're on board, he said, dropping into the pilot's seat. Get me a route out of here. Already working on it, Kara replied. Hold on, it's going to get rough. Jason fired up the engines, his hands steady on the controls. The Resolute roared to life, blasting out of the docking bay as alarms blared throughout the station. The Tarvacs had made a critical mistake. They'd underestimated humanity. The Resolute blasted out of the Valoran Maw's docking bay, its engines roaring against the endless void. Jason's hands gripped the controls tightly as alarms blared throughout the ship. Behind him, the rescued children huddled together in the cargo hold, their frightened whispers barely audible over the ship's systems. Kara, where's my escape route? Jason barked into the comm. Kara's voice crackled through the speakers. Working on it. The Maw's defenses are online, and they've scrambled half their fleet to chase you. This isn't going to be a smooth ride. Jason glanced at the radar. Red blips filled the screen, marking the Tarvac ships closing in on his position. Frigates, gunships, and swarms of fighters swirled in pursuit, their weapons charging. Just give me something, Kara, Jason said, his voice tense but calm. There's a debris field from an old battle about 20 clicks out, she said. It's dense enough to give you some cover. I'm sending the coordinates now. Jason punched the data into the console, setting the course. Got it. Hang on, kids, he muttered, throttling the engines to full power. The Resolute hurtled toward the debris field, plasma fire streaking past the hull. The Tarvacs fighters were relentless, their smaller, faster ships closing the gap. Jason weaved through the chaos, narrowly dodging bolts of energy and retaliating with well-placed shots from the ship's rear cannons. Kara, this is getting tight. Jason growled. Almost there, she replied. Just a little farther. A fighter strafed the ship's starboard side, its shots grazing the hull and triggering a cascade of warning lights. Jason cursed under his breath, throwing the Resolute into a sharp roll to evade the next barrage. Jason, your shields are down to 20%, Kara warned. You need to lose them now. Jason's jaw tightened. Watch this. He plunged the ship into the debris field, the remains of shattered cruisers and forgotten war machines spinning silently in the void. The Tarvacs fighters followed, but their speed worked against them. Jason darted between jagged metal hulks and broken weapons platforms, using the field to his advantage. One by one, the pursuing ships crashed into the debris, their explosions lighting up the dark expanse. All right, you bought yourself some breathing room, Kara said. But the big guns are still on your tail. Jason glanced at the radar. The larger Tarvac ships were closing in, their heavy cannons charging for a crippling shot. I need something to punch through, he said. This isn't going to hold much longer. Kara's voice grew serious. There's one option, but you're not going to like it. Try me. The Maw's gravitational tether is still active, she explained. If you fly close enough to the black hole, the gravitational pull will disrupt their targeting systems. But you'll have to ride the edge of the event horizon. Jason smirked, adrenaline surging. Sounds fun. Jason, I'm serious, Kara snapped. One wrong move, and you'll get pulled in. Then I won't make a wrong move, he said, throttling the engines toward the black hole. The black hole loomed ahead, its massive form distorting light and space around it. The Tarvax frigates followed, their captains hesitant but unwilling to let their prey escape. Jason's hands moved like lightning over the controls, his focus unshakable. The Resolute skimmed the edge of the event horizon, the ship groaning under the strain. Proximity alarms screamed as the gravitational pull threatened to tear the vessel apart. Jason gritted his teeth, fighting the controls with every ounce of strength. The Tarvax ships weren't as fortunate. Their targeting systems faltered, and their trajectories wavered. One frigate drifted too close to the black hole and was swallowed whole, its massive bulk disappearing into the void. Jason seized the opportunity, firing the ship's last remaining torpedoes at the lead frigate. The explosions ripped through its engines, sending it spinning out of control. Jason, you're clear. Kara shouted. Punch it! Jason slammed the hyperspace lever, and the Resolute shot forward, leaving the black hole and the Tarvax ships behind. Hours later, the Resolute emerged into the calm of human-controlled space. Jason set the ship to autopilot and leaned back in his seat, his body finally relaxing as the adrenaline faded. In the cargo hold, the children looked up as he entered, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and relief. Jason knelt down, his voice gentle. We're safe now. We're heading home. One of the older kids, a boy with tear-streaked cheeks, stepped forward. You really came for us? Jason nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. Always. Back on New Horizon, the children were reunited with their families in a scene of overwhelming emotion. Parents wept as they held their kids, their gratitude shining through every word and gesture. Jason stood at the edge of the crowd, his arms crossed as he watched quietly. Kara appeared beside him, her holographic form flickering slightly. You did good, Jason. He nodded, his gaze distant. They took kids, Kara. There was never any choice. She smirked. The Tarvax won't forget this, you know. You've just painted a giant target on your back. Jason's expression hardened. Good. Let them come. I'll be waiting. With that, he turned and walked toward the Resolute, the weight of the mission still heavy on his shoulders, but his resolve stronger than ever. The galaxy might be cruel and unforgiving, but humanity wasn't one to back down from a fight, especially not when it came to protecting their own.